Hi everybody, it's Heidi, counsellor, psychotherapist, and you're listening to We Are All Fine, an acronym for flawed, insecure, nervous and emotional. The podcast for young people and young adults who want to feel heard and welcomed and part of a world where being fine is being okay. It's lovely to have you back. It's episode 6. Today we are specifically looking at the I of our acronym, FINE, insecure, as we start to look at self-worth and low self-esteem. I know this is going to help you understand why yours may be lower than you'd like it to be. So let's spend the next 20 minutes or so working out how we can increase it. What is low self-esteem and what is low self-worth? They are related and one will impact the other, but let's look at them as two different things. Self-esteem refers to the level of confidence you have in your worth and your abilities. If yours is high, you will believe in yourself. But if yours is low, you'll have negative feelings about your abilities and your accomplishments. Self-worth means how you value yourself. If you have a high level of self-worth, you think you're a good person who is worthy of respect. Low self-worth, you will not value yourself as a person, regardless of your achievements and your values. Now, both involve your overall thoughts and feelings and beliefs about yourself, and I'm keen to share with you the key differences between self-esteem and self-worth. For me, the most obvious and most important difference is this. Self-esteem is found in the world and self-worth is found within. So E for esteem comes from external sources and W for worth comes from within. Real self-worth comes from inside ourselves. It does not need to be found, built or rebuilt. But self-esteem is mainly developed in response to things in your life, how people respond to you, for example. It's a blend of experiences and relationships that influence you and how they leave their mark on you. Let's look a bit deeper into self-worth, okay? It's not something you need to earn. It does not rely on comparisons to remain high. It does not change according to your successes and your failures. It comes from a deep, healthy, trusting relationship with inside yourself. Counsellors, we call this the self-concept. It's your identity. So if you've got a really deep, trusting relationship with your self-concept, you're going to have a decent level of self-worth. Your worth will develop and get stronger by knowing yourself and showing your true self, as we just talked about with the self-concept. And it can be cultivated and harvested through mindfulness and self-compassion. Think of self-worth as being something deeper than self-esteem, a recognition of your intrinsic value as a person based on your internal self. Working as a young person's counsellor like I do, self-esteem and self-worth come up in basically, I'd say 95% of the sessions. I often ask clients about their self-worth and their identity, their self-concept, in order for me to be able to understand some of their vulnerabilities or insecurities. Let's look at some examples of how self-worth shows up in a person and see if you can relate to any of what I'm saying here. If you've got a high self-worth, you're going to feel a good sense of control over your life, your environment. You're going to be able to express yourself quite well. If you're secure in your beliefs, your standards and your boundaries will all be in place and you'll have confidence maintaining them. When you face obstacles or tragedies or really tough stuff in life, you'll find it easy to cope and recover. If you make a mistake of any kind, you'll just be able to forgive yourself and move on. If you have a decent level of self-worth, you're likely to be competitive because you don't need to prove anything to yourself or anybody else. You'll be really secure in yourself. Let's have a look at how you'd feel now if you've got low self-worth. You are definitely going to have a really powerful and strong inner critic. This is an internal voice in your head who's constantly berating you, constantly criticising you and constantly putting you down. When that voice is strong, you are going to deny yourself any compliment and any good positive comments. You'll just shrug them off and deny them. You'll have a real inability to focus on the positive qualities that you have, and you will have many. Let me give you an example. You've posted something on Instagram. You've got 30 really lovely comments, but the 31st one isn't so great. It's going to be quite negative. If you've got low self-worth, you're going to be focusing and ruminating on that one, not the positive ones. You will focus mainly on all the mistakes and errors you've made and all the failings in life, what you've done and what you didn't do. You'll just keep going over it in your own mind. You'll probably have a massive problem comparing yourself to others. You'll be putting the spotlight on what they've done versus what you've done, always putting yourself down. You're going to be driven by deep beliefs and feelings of being unworthy. In counselling, we refer to these thoughts as core beliefs. And guess which one is the most common core belief I hear? I'll tell you, it's I am not good enough. Often really tough to change. These internal dialogues we have within ourselves, and don't forget, your self-worth comes from inside, it comes from within. Thoughts can be entrenched so deeply they're going to feel almost impossible to change. You need a good enough level of self-worth to be able to manage the highs and lows of your self-esteem. Let's talk about that now. Self-esteem describes your thoughts and feelings about yourself and your level of confidence. It isn't stable or consistent. Instead, it depends heavily on the outer world of people, tasks, and external information you use to compare, judge, and evaluate yourself. Imagine your mind then as an evaluation form. It's constantly evaluating everything you do in order to score your self-esteem as either high or low. Your mind is scanning for your personal strengths and your weaknesses, the positive and all the negative feedback it gets from others all around you. It's measuring your mood, your stress levels, and emotional inputs and outputs. It's comparing you to everyone around you and wants to know if you're meeting your goals and expectations. It's assessing the quality and quantity of the relationships you have with your family, your friends, your peers. It's looking for how you make sense of not just only yourself as a human being and what you think you look like, but it's grading your experiences of the world around you too. It never switches off. This is why if you have a low score on that evaluation form most of the time, you're going to be feeling quite miserable, anxious and low. This will all have a knock-on effect on the way you think about yourself, and that will be so negative and harsh. You will not stop any of this until you stop evaluating yourself in such a poor way. If you can relate to any of what I'm just about to say now, you are going to have scored quite low on your evaluation form for self-esteem. So, are you moody, feeling more depressed, anxious, irritable or upset? Are you becoming defensive, blaming others or projecting the anger or difficult emotions onto other people? Are you overusing unhealthy outlets, alcohol, drugs, distractions to cope? Is your inner motivation poor and your drive to focus and getting things done quite weak as well? Do you have this urgency, this need to do more or seek validation or reassurance to feel better about yourself from other people? Do you abandon goals or projects or tasks or hobbies that don't provide you with that immediate boost to your self-esteem? And do you feel less able to control the urges and the impulses? Because self-esteem is more vulnerable to internal and external factors, it's also more fragile. Many of the factors that influence it change frequently and are not always within your control. Unless you have a strong backup system, and that's your self-worth, to rely on when your self-esteem takes a hit, the inevitable ups and downs of life may take a massive emotional toll on you. So while you just think over what we've just talked about and digest for a few moments and think about the difference between your self-esteem and your self-worth, let's take a break to hear this week's counsellor's question. This week's question's been sent in a few times. When is the right time to start counselling? The important word in this question for me is time. Timing is everything for clients when they think about starting therapy. I often hear people say they should have done it sooner, and I always respond by suggesting, look, you're here now and this will be the right time for you. Clients come into therapy when they're experiencing regular or constant emotional dissonance. That's a disconnect. Thoughts and feelings have probably come detached from one another in some way, and they'll be feeling this huge array of emotions. Often they're struggling to process them. There may have been an obvious trigger, for example, a death, any kind of loss, a breakup, some exam stress, something that we can work from to manage the emotional reactions they're going through. Sometimes clients might not understand what is causing their pain, so I take the time to talk them through their experiences. I use theoretical frameworks and I help map out their life experiences against their emotions. By doing this, we can often uncover the reasons behind their constructed series of thoughts, feelings and behaviours. I'm a huge fan of educating my clients about any kind of psychology and always strive to explain why they may be reacting with anxiety, for example, or why they might be struggling with their low mood. Providing clients with the knowledge that much of what they're experiencing is actually a normal psychological response can be incredibly empowering. Many people also seek therapy to have their own private space away from family and friends, to work on their feelings with a professional who can facilitate their personal development. Often they want to protect people, so they might need a space just to come and have that conversation with me to protect others from their emotional upset and disturbance. Going into therapy will always be one of the most rewarding things you can do for yourself. It's an example of self-care. Take the time, do your research, reach out to people that you think are going to be able to help you. Ask for an introductory call or a video call with a counsellor. There's lots and lots of websites online you can go and look at. But finding the right therapist is always going to be key to the success. Welcome back. Let's just do a quick recap. So far, we've learned that self-worth is how you feel about who you are, a recognition of your intrinsic value as a person based on your internal self, while your self-esteem is how you feel about what you can do in recognition of your accomplishments and contributions to the external world. Research tells us that self-esteem tends to decline in early adolescence and does recover in the middle to late stages of adolescence. So some of what you're feeling is in line with your development. See if this maps your esteem experience. The first drop in self-esteem is around the ages of 9 to 13. This is when you're going to be becoming more independent, growing away from your family, into your friendship groups, and of course struggling with the huge changes that puberty brings. Fast forward 5 years to the second drop, so this is around 18 to 23. Here, at this stage in your life, you're going to be faced with the daunting reality of what's to come, what your future may or may not be. We all go through adolescence and beyond under huge amounts of pressure. These always are going to result in overwhelming feelings to life that most of you are going to struggle to manage. The good news is, once you hit adulthood, research does suggest there is a slow rise of self-esteem. But of course, your own personal experiences might not have mirrored the stats I've just shared with you. We've talked how it feels if you have a high or low self-worth or self-esteem, but now let's have a wider view of what causes both of those to be poor. It's not going to surprise you that when I've worked with people with low self-esteem or low self-worth, they nearly always find a way to make it their own fault, somehow linking their own faults and traits to the reason that they struggle with the way they judge and feel about themselves. But science will tell you otherwise, so take note of this the next time your inner critic reminds you you're to blame for the way you are and the way you feel. Researchers estimate that genes and biology determine about 50% of someone's self-esteem. This will include factors such as personality traits, predispositions, and your overall psychological makeup. I have a personal experience of this. I've come to appreciate that I am predispositioned to depression and anxiety due to my family makeup. The more I've developed my career, the more obvious this stands out to me now. I can now see the gene pool that I've been born out of has contributed to my sensitive nervous system and has increased my vulnerability when faced with how I manage my emotions. I'm also aware my environmental factors and my stress have piled into the mix, adding further tension to my ability to manage challenging feelings. This interplay will always be there for me, and I cannot fully blame my family line for this. I've learned to take responsibility for my own actions, but I know some of how I react is down to the biological influences that do sit inside me. With the family influences in mind, the other 50% of what determines your level of self-esteem and self-worth are early childhood experiences and parenting strategies. How you have been brought up directly contributes to your sense of self, and how you were brought up directly contributes to your sense of self and how you value and respect yourself. The more critical, abusive and neglectful your parents or caregivers were, the more negative an impact this will have on you. Positive parenting styles will foster your confidence and sense of value. To help understand this a bit better, break your life down into different sections. First, start thinking about your childhood. So how were your emotional needs met when you were growing up? Were you loved, cherished, encouraged, praised, taught to communicate openly, got that emotional validation? Or did the opposite happen? Were you met with harsher criticism, high levels of control, living up to and failing high expectations that were set on you? Or were your parents neglectful, and maybe uninvolved in your childhood. Abusive parents of any kind will clearly stunt your emotional growth, keeping you locked inside your childhood, scared and anxious to be punished or hurt if you did say anything wrong. The last thing you're going to want to do is antagonise a controlling or an abusive parent. If this is your experience on any level, you would have grown up hypersensitive to your environment and energy within your family. Just to share something personal, for me, having a dad who left when I was young, I was just 3, and he didn't invest any time in keeping the connection going throughout my childhood, has definitely had a long-lasting impact on my self-esteem. My core belief was, if my dad doesn't want me, nobody else will. He actually went on to have 4 other daughters, so I know he could dad, but he didn't dad me. My internal dialogue left its mark. If he doesn't want me, nobody else will. I noticed this as I was going through adolescence because I sought validation and attention from all my boyfriends. Placed such a lot of emphasis on my own self-worth, on my romantic relationships. I would always fall hard, but found that level of intensity was not something I was equipped to deal with. So I would end the relationship and move on again, repeating the same cycle. All the while keeping my self-esteem low. I am not good enough. Nobody wants me. My message then started to become, you can't love, you can't keep people close to you. It's mad how the lifelong messages we glean from our relations with others sets the pace for the rest of our lives. That's really normal. If you're listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, and you're relating, going, this is me, this does not make you weird or odd. What I'm trying to do on this podcast today is educate you about your own self-worth and your own self-esteem. As young people now, you guys are in a much better position than I was at your age because you've just got so much more acceptance of your mental health and loads of support and awareness and education, all allowing you to be able to recognise your patterns of relating. Podcasts like this offering you knowledge about why your esteem and worth could be low, all this gives you a choice about what you can do about the way you feel. I think one of my strengths as a young person's counsellor is my ability to highlight to each of you, you have personal agency. I love promoting your autonomy, to strive to believe in yourself, and that you have got those strengths. You just might not always be able to reach them. I really do believe that giving you this knowledge is going to make it easier for you to change your self-esteem and your self-worth. You are all incredible and doing the best you can. I'm really admiring you for that. So that's us looking at childhood. Now let's move on to teenage years, say from the ages of 11 to 16. Here you start to develop your identity. But if you've left your childhood with a damaged self-esteem and self-worth, think about this, you're already in an emotional overdraft. Secondary school often makes us or breaks us. It's harsh and cruel for so many of you, a place where you have to survive, maybe not always thrive in there. The qualifications you spend these 5 years working towards become the foundations for your academic journey, don't they? A-levels, uni, etc. So of course the pressure is going to be gigantic. You throw in a whole dose of other stuff here, bullying, abuse, sexual relationships, risky behaviours. You're trying to find your tribe. You're going to feel left out. Parents might get divorced. It's about this time you might stop losing your grandparents or the family pet. You'll be comparing yourself to others, going through puberty. My goodness me, these 5 years hit you with so much. You're directly in the way of all the bullets of life that will blow holes in your confidence and self-belief. Let's just take a moment here for a quick therapy thought. Some gentle words of support. Please play them over and over again just to start to nudge your self-esteem and your self-worth in the right direction. You are good enough, smart enough, beautiful enough, strong enough, confident enough. You are enough. Start from there. Believe that and stop letting insecurity ruin your life. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. Welcome back. Keep that therapy thought in mind. Once we have school in the bag done and all the emotional scars left from that, we then have some choices. You are no longer in compulsory education. So you can choose. It's college, sixth form, work, or maybe you just none of those and you just take some time out. This is super scary too, as you're expected to have all the answers and the drive for what you want to do the rest of your life. And you're supposed to make decisions like that at 16. My goodness. Just for the record, I actually didn't get into counselling until I was in my mid-20s. 1998 was my first counselling course. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I left school. I can remember doing one of those tests with the careers advisor where they ask you loads of questions and you punch in all these answers and then it spits out your career. And mine was a manager of WH Smith. I wanted to be a teacher, I think, I definitely wanted to be a teacher up until I was about 16, 17. Sadly, biggest regret of my life, I didn't go to university, and the rest is history. But who knows, maybe I wouldn't have become a counsellor if I had gone to university. Maybe things do happen for a reason. If you're struggling with your self-esteem or any kind of mental health hangover from adolescence, you're now having to make a massive future decision, aren't you? You're 16, 17, 18. What am I going to be doing with the rest of my life? Get that wrong or not quite on the right page as your future self, and there comes another bang to your self-esteem. Chances are, if you go into uni at this point, it might be the first time you've left home. You'll be independent in more ways than you've ever been. Tasked with adopting to uni life, making new friends, cooking for yourself, budgeting, washing your clothes, lectures, managing your social life. So many external sources around you that will influence and direct your esteem or your self-worth. It's often a positive experience for most of you, as is travelling. You tend to come back a different person, and that can often have a really good impact on your identity. Often taking yourself away from the familiar environment, your surroundings, stretching your own comfort zone is really rewarding. It strengthens your self-concept and the traits in yourself that you are comfortable with, and they will show themselves up in a much bigger degree. This time of your life, you can go and reinvent yourself and your personality. Taking parts of you with you and leaving others at home is something I often hear in my room. It's exciting and daunting, but you can only really be yourself, and masking that at university causes way more stress. I've walked you through the stages of your life so far, showing you how your self-esteem and worth are enhanced and hindered. So after we finish this podcast, I invite you to do this yourself with your own life stages. Think about who was about, who helped, and who hacked away at your self-esteem. Changing is never easy. You cannot undo your history, and if you are poorly invested in yourself due to the influences of others, you can't go back and change that. I always remind my clients you can't go backwards, only ever forwards. So what can you now control in your life? I think it can be really helpful to stand back and realise that the only thing you've got control over is the next moment and the one that follows that. Think about that. It's so empowering. You are now in full control, more control than you've ever been, moment by moment. If you're recognising your esteem and your worth are lower than you'd like, and you may be working out why, that's great. Before we finish our conversation today, let me share with you how I work with my clients to start to adapt their thoughts and behaviours to increase and enhance their esteem. It's a common belief that if you improve your self-esteem, it's the solution to feeling better about yourself, but improving your self-worth is more likely to provide lasting benefits. This is because your self-worth is stable and consistent, whereas your self-esteem constantly fluctuates. Let's go back to the W of worth within. Now, within you, you have the capacity to make the changes you need to grow your identity. I've given you some tips. I'm just about to give you some tips in this podcast. Stick to some of these or all of these, and you will start to feel a much more comfortable version of yourself. I'll be honest with you now, I have not found a quick fix solution to increasing self-esteem and self-worth. It doesn't happen quickly. Rather, I notice a subtle change over time. I'll notice difference in my clients' language and the way they perhaps describe themselves. They'll use kinder words, less harsh, be a little bit more tolerant of themselves and others, appreciating that they're on a journey of raising their confidence, and it's not always going to come without the odd bump in the road. You might feel like you go 2 forward, 1 back. I'd probably say that was quite normal. All you can do is your best and try. I believe in you. You believe in you. Take on board some of what I'm just about to share. All of my techniques I'm going to share with you now require massive dollops of self-compassion. That's the only way in to start to alter anything about yourself, is being kinder to yourself first. Self-love. First thing you can start to practice to do is this. Separate what you do from who you are. That's essential. Now, by that I mean get in touch with your feelings, beliefs and core values. Your values are the things you want, need and care about most in your life. By standing true to your core values, this reminds you that your worth is not tied to your successes and failures. It'll also help you get in touch with deeper parts of yourself. Craft out your values. What do you stand for? And make that the pillar of judgment for yourself. What's important to you? We are all guilty of looking outside of ourselves for the validation and the worth. Try challenging that. Approval, yes, it's important, but self-approval is worth so much more to your well-being. I will offer you this. To build up your self-belief every day, think of 3 things you've done in the day that you're happy about. You might have helped a friend, had a good hair day, been to all your lectures despite having a massive hangover or something. You've eaten reasonably well, been to the gym, visited your gran. Anything you do of worth to yourself needs to be recognised. Setting this intention to flick through the day and taking those few moments to remind yourself that you are a great human being will have a massive difference, huge impact on your mental well-being. If you do nothing else after this podcast, do that. Email me, HeidiWeAreAllFine@gmail.com. Try it for a couple of days, 3 or 4 things, recognising your worth. Let me know how you get on. Second technique I'm going to share with you, stop competing and start connecting. Start to interrupt yourself when you begin to compare yourself to others or feel that urge to compete. When you feel this rise up inside of you, you'll know it's there as you will feel crappy and defensive. Get yourself a trigger word to bring in to disrupt the process. You could also try to switch around your approach as well. Rather than comparing to somebody else, you could also try to switch around this approach as well. So when you catch yourself comparing, oh, she's got nicer hair than me, he's got bigger muscles than me, whatever, stop comparing and find the commonalities instead. You're training your brain here, remember. It's practice, practice, practice. The more you practice these techniques, the more your brain starts recognising it as a normal behaviour. Once this starts to happen with any change you make with your brain, old patterns of relating will start to change and newer patterns of relating will start to grow. I'll tell you about another acronym I use as well, LOVE, L-U-V. This is really great and it helps my clients remember what to do if you've got low self-esteem in your life. You just need a little more love. L stands for listen. What words you use to describe yourself, start tuning into what they are and change them. U stands for understand. Where are these words coming from? What's the source of the criticism and judgment? So if it was a parent, a friend, a teacher, whose words are you using to describe yourself? And we need to challenge them now by listening and understanding them. The V is value. Value yourself more. You are your own best friend. Those kind of words and statements that you're going to start to use now to describe to yourself, you have the right to self-compassion. Exercise that. It's a free way of being with who you are and treating yourself with complete respect. You do really need to learn to love yourself, listen, understand and value. Let's reframe your pain. Look at the times in your life that you feel you've made the mistakes or your failures, your flaws, the things you've done wrong. Turn them into lessons. What have you learned from that experience that might well have gone on to develop you further down the line? I know from dark experience, the pain I've endured and I've tried to hide from doesn't disappear. It just gets bigger. You need to find a way to look at your pain deep in the eye and see what it's trying to tell you. Thank you for your time today. If you've liked what you've heard, please tell others and share this episode. If you've loved what you've heard, please rate my show. All your feedback is welcome and I really want to hear from as many of you as I can. Feel free to email me, HeidiWeAreAllFine@gmail.com. That's HeidiWeAreAllFine@gmail.com. Don't forget to send me some questions, please, that I'd like to answer for next week's show. Subscribing to my podcast is easy, as is finding me, and We Are All Fine on all the usual social media platforms I've been on. Scary still, but we're getting there. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, have a look around. All your comments on all of those pages are going to be read and appreciated. Look into next week's episode now. If you're one of the many people who have a real fear of being judged by others, you may well be suffering from FOPO, fear of people's opinions, a term coined by the psychologist Michael Gervais. I use it often in my client work. Make sure you pop your headphones in for the next show where we will be exploring why we're all anxious and stressed about how we are seen by others and what we can do to start to challenge it. We are all flawed, insecure, nervous and emotional, but we're doing a fantastic job of life. Never, ever forget that. And one last thing, always remember, be yourself. You're no one else. Until next time, you take good care. Finally, some important takeaways. The podcast is for informational use only and should not be used as a substitution for professional advice or any personal diagnosis. These opinions are personal and I do not guarantee the accuracy of such opinions or information. I am not intending to create a counselling relationship with you, and you should always consult a qualified mental health professional with any concerns.